Hello, and welcome to Iconic Production, and this is Behind the Screen. I am JM, and we've got kind of a somber show this morning. Good friend, both of the channel and personally, and a lot of you out there, Rookcat, and I've got permission to share all of this. Rookcat passed on last Thursday, a week ago, so it's still really fresh. And so today we're going to do a little remembering Rook discussion this morning. Rook was John. He's a great guy and a huge supporter of Iconic, and he has shared on the stream before how he had battled cancer and what he had beaten. The thing, if you know about cancer goes into remission, never really goes away. And yeah, on the 6th, he let us all know that he was back in the hospital, and on the 18th, he passed. And so I thought today we would just share your guys' thoughts, my thoughts, and remember a great guy and a really good friend. So I thank to everybody who has sent in info to me to share. I've gotten so many emails. Another person who follows the show because Rook introduced her and her husband to Iconic. Alyssa and I are in conversation right now. She was a good friend of Rook's. We may have something going there. As far as what we're going to try and do in Iconic, we're trying to organize maybe a charity game. Maybe auction off a couple pieces of art over the next month in February, just so we can make a donation to Rook's family. For those of you who are in the chat, you know that Rook was a source of enthusiasm. Many of you had your first subscriptions to Iconic because Rook would just show up and like Santa Claus, show up in the stream and gift a number of subscriptions. And so I'm gonna kind of bounce between my memories of Rook and everyone else's memories of Rook. And so the first one we're gonna read is from Tinker Hellraiser. Guys will have to excuse me if it is difficult for me to get through some of these. So Tink said, I met Rook this past year. I didn't know him as long as a lot of the people who gamed with him. He was one of the first people I met on the channel. It was a pretty tight community and everyone seems to know each other pretty well. He was the first one to say hello, bought me my first subscription so I can keep listening to Iconic. He was kind of famous for buying subscriptions for new people to keep them around. I mentioned that I wanted to do a kids game this fall with some kids I teach, but I didn't know what to run or how to run a game. And Rook wrote me an adorable game to run with the kids, just to be helpful and share the love of gaming with children. Then this past summer, when JM did his big, dramatic, almost dying thing, Rook jumped in to run and playing games to keep the house lights on at Iconic while JM began his recovery. He seemed like the type of guy who gave and gave and gave. I'm just grateful I got to know him for the time I did. He will be so missed. And that was the sentiment from a lot of people when Druid Philosophy made the announcement that there was just so many of us that are just going to miss Rook. Greg, who's on our channel, got to play in a bunch of Torg games with Rook. And Bob, he was in our Horror at Headstone Hill game. And I got to meet Rook first when we just started the Iconic Production channel all those years ago. Our first game was the Fading Suns game. And it was Maddie and Becca and Abby and Lee. And I got to know Rook through Lee. Lee played Captain Calypso Mars, and Rook was in the channel every week when we were streaming for 4 hours. Dedicated, invested, making jokes, making puns. When we started the Discord server, he became one of our moderators. And, over the last 5 years, Rook and I talked multiple times a week. We bounced game ideas off of each other. We talked about books. We talked about life and movies and mainly games. And he was in the process of writing a game, and he did an amazing job. He ran a session for me. I got to play an orc warrior poet samurai that we kept saying, hey, we should get back to that sometime. Either he was super busy or I was super busy. We all have friends in our lives that we keep meaning to make time for. And don't keep thinking you're going to have time to make up for. This is the second time in my life that I've had someone like this. My good friend Jeremy, we just kept planning to hang out at a later date. When con season was over, when this thing was over. Actually, meningitis took Jeremy. Yeah, Rook. Make time. Thanks, Grom. I appreciate that. Rook played in a lot of the iconic patron games. In fact, he and Phantom of Truth were the core patrons in our patron game that Mark ran. Yeah, Bob. Jeremy Dale, great comic book artist, another good friend. We hung out. I mean, you and I hung out with him. We played City of Heroes together. Not to get morose and think about Ben Feehan, good friend of the show, played in a lot of our games as well. He said, I never interacted with Rook in person, or even really via screen, just online on Discord. I think, though, I might have, as I mentioned in person to me, the thing that always stood out to me when I interacted with Rook was the sense that he always wanted to do the right thing. He was guileless. He didn't just want to look like he was doing the right thing. In an online world where you could be anything you want and project any kind of persona, he chose to be the good guy. The last personal direct interaction I had with Rook was him apologizing for an interaction he thought might have been too harsh and might have hurt my feelings. It hadn't, and actually hadn't bothered me at all. But I was touched by the fact that he was willing to make that effort to reach out that way. So there's going to be, I don't think there's going to be a GoFundMe or anything like that, but they do have some information to share. I'm not going to post it online because it's got some personal people's info, but if you would like to donate and help Rook's wife and his young daughters, Rook and his wife had twins last year, twin baby girls, which if he was proud of everything that he did, being a dad always was the thing he was most proud of. Mark, who ran our patron games, had this to share. Rook played an elf in my Dark Eye game. I'm not going to try and pronounce his name, Mark. You can put it in the chat. He spoke with a German accent, like in the old Hobbit cartoon, and shaved his head to keep the wind spirits from bothering him. They liked to pull his hair. He had hair-bound power as a disadvantage. He definitely embraced the Dark Eye canon of elves not understanding the human world and was always committing faux pas. He was also known to chase villains through the woods naked, as he was bathing at the time. If you want to remember Rook, if you never got a chance to see him, he played in 2 of our online games. He played in Birth of a Jackal, and he played in the horror at Headstone Hill with Bob and Lily and JD and myself. And so, in these moments, when you are feeling as if someone you knew has gone from the world, I'm taking some solace in the fact that, while I'll never get to chat with him again, a part of him is there that I can go back and still have him there. I went and rewatched parts of Birth of a Jackal and Horror at Headstone Hill just to make me feel like Rook was still there laughing with me. He was so theatrical. He poured his heart and soul into every character that he played. Dagnerborn said, as a player and as a DM, Rook was nonstop. He was excellent as becoming characters, even monsters. Yeah, 100%. Oh my God, was his laugh infectious. Rook could make the dopiest pun and get the whole table rolling. I remember his gravelly voice with his Harrowed in the Horror at Headstone Hill. It just kept throwing himself into characters. Yes, Padre, that was mine too. So for those of you who don't know, in Horror at Headstone Hill, which is our Deadlands game, Rook played our Harrowed, a person who has come back from the dead, inhabited by a Manitou spirit. And so whenever you let the devil out, you get bonuses to dice, but then you have to draw a card to kind of see what happens with the Manitou. And Rook kept getting this card that was like the Manitou does something that you're not aware of. And they were always in these situations where something dangerous was at hand. And so the first time it happened, they were getting rid of dynamite that was sweating. It was too explosive. It was too dangerous to handle. And so I had the Harrowed actually like pocketed some of this dynamite. And then in the climactic episode, Sister May, played by JD, was driving the mule to blow up the big bad evil guy, and Rook had another one, and he had stuffed the weeping dynamite in Sister May's pocket and shot it and blew her, the mule, all the dynamite, and the big bad evil guy up in one swell foop. And his reaction when that happened was priceless. Was just priceless. Druid Philosophy posted, any memorial of Rook would be incomplete without mentioning his eager role of playing Priscilla, the sentient, bloodthirsty dagger. No one encouraged sweet little Grace or Vera to engage in violence more effectively. Additionally, our friendship found a way to survive even when Gertrude did it. So many hugs and heartfelt apologies in the studio after that stream. It's hard to believe that the only time we actually met in person, he was such a huge person, literally and figuratively, that I forgot we were only sharing screen space. He was a champion of justice, chasing trolls out of the chat and creating AU campaigns in which beloved character could live new lives and have second or third or fourth chances to shine. I'm not crying. You're crying. Not to mention the way he picked up on and supported any and all obscure references to Pratchett, Doctor Who, Dimension 20, or Critical Role. And Becca said that one of her favorite memories was playing in Birth of a Jackal with Rook, and the introduction of Madness Honey into the game, and Rook's obsession with Madness Honey. In fact, the whole reason we have this emote in our Twitch catalog is because of Rook. So, in case you haven't figured out, Rook was really loved by everyone here on Iconic. And I know some people butted heads with him in his role as moderator on Iconic, but he was always willing to de-escalate, take advice from me on, applying new moderation practices. He was always on line, willing to chat or interact or goof around with anyone. And I think that's going to be the thing I miss most about Rook. The knowledge that he was always there and would basically do just about anything to lift you up, make you laugh, tell you it was going to be okay, and help you get through it. It is not going to be the same around here without you, buddy. So again, we're going to try and do a couple of things in February to kind of help raise some money or awareness for Rook's family. I can't imagine what his wife is going through, or what those two baby girls that he is so proud to be their dad, what they're going to face. And so if you think about it, he did write a game, Bob. He wrote a kids game for Tink to use. And we're reaching out about possibly doing something with that as we get more. Yeah, he wrote a couple of games. As we get more into that, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to speak out of turn, but we'll see what we can do. We can do about that. I hope in the coming weeks we can all take a little bit of Rook with us. Whether it's whether it's trying to bring joy to other people, trying to be there for other people, laughing. Yeah. Bob and Tink, I want to reach out to both of you for both the kids game possibility and also for maybe a memorial piece that we could, then put up and auction off and send out. Yes, Griffey, Rook would want us all to take care of ourselves and love each other. So, again, I don't want to speak out of turn with what we have planned. We're going to try and do we are going to try and do a community game. We're going to or a charity game. We're going to try and do an auction of a couple of art pieces, and there may be some other things in February that we come together to do to support Rook. There's a poem that I always think of in times like this. I'm going to try and read it and get through it. Some of you may be familiar with my love of Tolkien. And typically, when I'm remembering people long gone or who are not with us anymore, I light a candle, I say a little prayer for them. And then I sit with my grief with this. Where now are the horse and the rider? Where is the horn that is blowing? Where is the helm and the hauberk and the bright hair flowing? Where is the harp on the harpstring and the red fire glowing? Where is the spring and the harvest and the tall corn growing? They have passed like rain on the mountain, like wind in the meadow. The days have gone down in the west, behind the hills into shadow. Who shall gather the smoke of the dead wood burning, or behold the flowing years from the sea returning? That's us. We're the ones who get to sit here and remember the little bit of the light that has gone out in the world. So I don't really have a whole lot more to say on this one, except for the fact that I loved you, Rook, and I'm going to miss you. And I know that you were loved by a lot of people not just on the Iconic channel, but also in the world. So if you got one, raise a glass to Rook. You'll be missed, buddy. until next time, I hope that you all remain safe and remain healthy and remain gaming. This has been Behind the Screen. I will see you all later. Until then, have a good one.